If you're a woman with ADHD, the expectations are already impossible, disproportionate mental load, invisible labor, expectations around managing the home and parenting. And we struggle with executive function. If you're in a hetero relationship and a husband has ADHD, it's also harder for the woman because of those same expectations. And now your husband gets this pass. Oh, he can't manage the calendar because he has ADHD. And it's not fair. Guess what? If he can keep his job and make it to a meeting at work, then he can do that at home as well. Nobody gets to opt out, and we get to have great compassion for one another and meet in the middle. It's about equitable distribution of labor within the family.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Today, I am so excited to bring here a new friend that I actually met from another guest on the show. And as soon as I met her, I was like, okay, I know there's a lot of you out there who could really benefit from hearing what my new friend Martha here has to say about ADHD as a mom. Okay. Now, some background information. Selfishly, I like to pick people that I want to learn from. So it's my show. That's what I'm doing. I'm hoping that there's a lot of you out there like, oh, I want to learn about this too. And I am at the age where I'm like perimenopausal or entering. I don't really know. They can't really tell me definitively. And what I've heard is that as women enter perimenopause, it's very common to start having these like ADHD symptoms. And so whether you have ADHD and you've had it all your life, maybe diagnosed or undiagnosed, like maybe you suspect it because it's all over Instagram and TikTok now. Like, this is what it looks like to have ADHD as a woman. Or you're entering perimenopause and things are happening now that you're like, I was never like this. We're going to tackle what it's like to have ADHD as a mom, signs that you may have ADHD as a mom, and tools that you can just take with you to navigate motherhood, marriage, life as a woman, feeling more empowered. Okay. And when it's time to get support in this area of your life. So Martha Hoffman, she is a ADHD coach. She works with moms with ADHD and helps them with all the things. So I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what she does. I'm going to let her describe that to you. But Martha, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm an ADHD coach and I'm an ADHD haver. I was diagnosed when I was a kid, I think 7th grade. So I've had the diagnosis my whole life. Figured out certain things when I was younger, but then when I became a mom, it was like 2.0 and I had to re-navigate some things. So I've been a mom for about 10 years. I have a 10 and 8-year-old daughter, a husband. He owns a restaurant. We live in Washington, D.C. I have my own coaching business. I was an educator before I went out on my own. So my background knowledge is education, special education, literacy, that whole world. And now this is what I do full time. And I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about ADHD in general.
Yeah.
Right. So how can one tell that they have this?
Yeah.
Right. So if you're like me, where I'm like, I don't know if I have it. Sometimes I feel like I do. It's not diagnosed. I haven't gone and done anything about it, but I know from our talks before we hit record, you're like, yeah, motherhood definitely exacerbated the symptoms. So what was your experience of that? As soon as you had your kids and you noticed like, oh, that's interesting, different, challenging, all of the things. Like,
Yeah.
what were the core symptoms that you noticed like coming up?
Yeah. So let me back up for 1 second. There are technically three types now medically. There's the hyperactive type, which I think is what first got a lot of reputation, right? Like really hyper, can't sit still, driven by a motor. There's still that type of ADHD. Then there's inattentive type, which is like distractible, having a hard time paying attention, having a hard time focusing. And then there's a combined type where you have a little bit of all of that. Um, I think I was probably flagged as a child because I was a bit hyperactive, which is less common in girls. It's more common in boys. Women with ADHD, often the hyperactivity is often more internal, like mental hyperactivity. So when I was a child, it actually did manifest a little bit more traditionally. Like I was hyper, I was loud, I never stopped moving, like constantly jumping off things and bonking things and all of that. And I think that was a flag for my parents to get me assessed. But as an adult, and especially when I became a mom, a lot of that hyperactivity went inward and my brain was never able to shut off. And I would say most women in 2025 would say that their mental load is heavy and that their brains are constantly going. Um, and that's when you hear people saying things like, isn't everyone a little bit ADHD? But the thing with ADHD, when there is a diagnosis, is it's persistent, it's pervasive, it's across settings, and it really is disrupting your daily functioning. So having like some brain fog and my mind going a mile a minute, let's say because like I had a bad night's sleep because the kids were up and they were sick, right? Versus the everyday battle of needing to manage my mind in order to remember what needs to be done, in order to do the bare essentials. And by bare essentials, I mean like the cognitive energy that it takes me to remember to stop and take a bathroom break and eat 2 or 3 meals in a day and make sure I pick up my kids on time after work. Um, Beyond just your typical, oh, I feel a little bit frazzled. So it's like the persistent, pervasive, really disrupting your everyday life is what goes from just everyday overwhelm to more in the ADHD world. Now, if people are really wondering, you're going to go to a clinician, a psychiatrist, or your GP, and you're going to get an assessment if you really want a formal diagnosis. But those are kind of the flags that might tell someone the difference between, ooh, sometimes I feel really frazzled, overwhelmed, distracted, versus I'm really without strategies, really having a hard time in my daily functioning.
So tell me about this because I know it's normal for like women of our age group to like walk into a room and be like, why did I come in here again?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily tie to like a lack of sleep, which is common for, when you're raising kids, like kids have nightmares or need
Yep.
something. But I mean, that will happen to me probably at least once, twice a day.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much sleep I get. So, like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So again, it's going to be about like the intensity of that. I think that probably happens to most humans, definitely
Mm-hmm.
most women that are managing a lot of things. It definitely happens more for folks with ADHD. And then I'll introduce my first intersection here of some of the things we've already mentioned, but hormones and ADHD are also like gasoline on a fire. So for women that have ADHD, before puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause are these times too where any way that your ADHD is showing up in you, your symptoms are absolutely exacerbated. So let's say the average mom maybe forgets once or twice a day why they walked into a room. Someone with ADHD, that might happen like 8 to 10 times a day. A woman in perimenopause, that might happen like 18 to 20 times a day. And that's really not an exaggeration. Without a strategy to figure out why they're walking into the room, it truly might happen up to like 20 or 25 times a day, which again really then becomes disruptive to your daily functioning.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think what you just said is like the bar is it disrupting your daily functioning
Yeah,
of normal life?
right.
So that would be like the red flag, like, hey.
Yeah, you're doing like, let's say all the things right, right? You're eating 3 meals a day, you're getting enough sleep, you're doing the basics, and still these symptoms of forgetfulness, distractibility, impulsivity, are disrupting your daily life. I did a live the other day with a friend of mine who's a money coach, and we were talking about ADHD and money, especially around this time of year, right? At time of recording, it's December, and if you celebrate holidays, you might do some other spending. And we were talking about some distinctions there, like impulsively picking up an extra gift for someone for Hanukkah or Christmas versus doing that repeatedly throughout this season to the point where your credit cards are maxed out and you're really living beyond your means and putting yourself in some financial danger because you don't have the impulse control and systems and strategies set up to say, this money is not there. I cannot do this, even if the card is there for the swiping. So again, mildly inconvenient to disruptive to my functioning, and really in some cases, sometimes dangerous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so let's dive into how this shows up for moms, period, like in life. Like being a mom is a lot.
Yeah.
So, what does life look like for a mom who has ADHD?
Yeah. So I think one of the best ways to describe it is to think about executive functioning, because when you have ADHD, your executive functioning is out of whack. You are experiencing executive dysfunction. There are other pieces, but that's a large piece of it. And parenting requires so much executive functioning. Executive functioning is going to account for planning, time management, scheduling. It can be related to your working memory, which is like your brain's post-it, the information that you just like have to hold for a little bit in order to use it, and then you can throw it away. Executive functioning is emotional regulation. And that was just 5 of the things that I listed. And we could also heading that, job description of being a mom. Planning, scheduling, emotional regulation, working memory, all of those things are really necessary when you are responsible for little humans. And so if that part of your brain struggles, and then you put those demands not just for you, but for others on you as well, and then you want to tack on at least American expectations that disproportionately mothers hold that load more than men, you're just kind of piling on. So again, for someone like me, I had a lot of strategies in place because I was diagnosed pretty young. I figured out how to get through high school, college, and graduate school. I figured out how to manage my paperwork, right? We bought a home and I bought a car and my finances were in order. I had coped quite well and figured out a lot of things to manage my ADHD. And then I became a parent and I had the hormonal impact, and then also just the responsibility of these humans and all their demands. I was no longer just responsible for me and my demands. I had to pile on 1 and then 2 more. And for me, it kind of blew up. And I think for a lot of moms, just because that executive dysfunction is already making it hard to do those things. And again, it's just then exacerbated when you have those needs of others as well. The other thing is sometimes women with ADHD just don't have their own needs met, right? And it's one thing to not meet your own needs, but you can't do that with children, right? There are basic needs that have to be met for children. And we do that sometimes to, the sacrifice of ourselves with or without ADHD. But it seems like when kiddos come along, it's just much harder to ignore and the wheels fall off in one way or another. I could give you, 30 different examples of how it could fall apart, but a lot of times that's when things start to fall apart.
Yeah. So of the people that you work with, what are some of the more common experiences or signs that people out there should be looking for where they should consider I think I need to go get some help with this?
Yeah. One of the most common ones I see right away is women just sacrifice their sleep. And as we mentioned before, kiddos already take so much of our sleep, right? They need to be bottle fed or nursed in the middle of the night, and they get sick and they get nightmares and all the things. But beyond that, thinking there's not enough hours in the day. So in order for me to just get the basics done, I can no longer sleep. That is often a flag for people when they come to me and say I can't operate on 3 to 5 hours of sleep, but I can't get things done if I don't only sleep 3 to 5 hours. What do? We go there. Women will, just report being in burnout. I'm constantly getting sick, physically sick, right? Fevers and colds, and can't seem to stay healthy. I'm constantly snapping, yelling at my kids and or partner because I feel like I don't have the bandwidth to handle even the mildest thing. I'm depressed or I'm really sad. So either like explosive in anger or just like falling apart, crying a lot, and not being able to um, regulate their emotions. I struggle with that term a little bit because I don't think our emotions always should be regulated, but this feeling that like they can't kind of get above water, then which sometimes is misdiagnosed as anxiety or depression. And not to say that there's not comorbidity, but sometimes it's one or the other, and sometimes it is both. A lot of times when I start working with women, one of the first things that they describe is like, I feel like something must be wrong with me because I'm so successful in some parts of my life and I'm a hot mess in others. And that's one of the really distinguishing characteristics. They might say, like, I am a straight A graduate student, or I am getting my PhD, and like, I can't make sure that my kids have clean socks and underwear. Or we are ordering out 7 days a week because I cannot get food on the table, but I just got a promotion at this, like, Fortune 500 company, and I'm a boss at work, quite literally. So that like discrepancy too also seems to be something that folks come to me when they're like, I'm looking for more balance. I need to be like a little better in this part of my life and maybe dial it down in this other part, because these polar opposites are just burning me out.
Yeah, and I could imagine how conflicting that could be, right? Like I'm getting all this praise at my job or my career, and yet I know that when I'm at home, I feel like a colossal failure. Like how do I take both in, like, and not feel some sort of shame about it, right?
Yes,
Because that could feel really heavy to carry.
for sure. Tons of shame in ADHD. I mean,
Yeah.
to anyone that's listening, if you know someone, if you love someone with ADHD and you're ever frustrated with them, just know they are 10 times as frustrated with themselves. That goes for kids, partners, parents, siblings. We are deeply, deeply disappointed in ourselves frequently. So much shame. That's a lot of the work that I do with clients, is trying to face that and recognize that, and then shift our relationship with that and understand that we aren't a problem to be fixed, right? We can support ourselves and get help, but it's not like, you're broken, how do we fix this problem? Um, so again, if you're listening and you know someone with ADHD, just my number one advice would be have compassion for that person, because they know they're, insert whatever they're late, frustrating, annoying you, too much, too little, whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. Like, we know it and we feel it.
Yeah.
The volume turned all the way up.
Absolutely. And it's a sad reality that a lot of people with ADHD face. And our world is basically made up of relationships, right?
Mhm.
Your marriage, your relationship with your kids. And so, how do we work with that when you are like one of
Yeah.
in your family and you're feeling like you're just messing up?
Yeah. Yeah. So all of my work is surrounded around this idea of like, we are aware first, then we accept it, and then we act, right? So this awareness of just understanding it, that might sound really simple, but it's essential. Like, if you don't actually understand how ADHD is impacting you personally, what exactly is your profile? Where does it show up? Where does it show up in great ways too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I, like, I'm a professor and I do a lot of facilitating too on this topic, and I'm really, really great at it. And sometimes I try and teach others how to like design and facilitate like me. It's actually hard for me to teach. It's just like one of the things that is innately really, it's like one of my creative superpowers. So on both sides, but I really had to figure that out. So you kind of have to like study yourself and really understand yourself first. Then we work on accepting it. And again, trying to dismantle some of that shame. And only then can we take action to accept the things we want to keep the same, and then change the things that really are disruptive and we do want to change. And so, in that awareness stage, when I work with folks that are in families, a lot of that awareness is like, ADHD is full of contradictions, and we need to understand those. You as the person first, but then also the people in your family. So I work to understand my contradictions, and then I've helped my husband and children to understand them so they have compassion for me. So for example, when people interrupt me when I'm talking, it's really hard for me. It's like a little bit of an anger trigger because then I lose my train of thought and I can't remember, but I interrupt people all the time. So if you don't understand that about me and understand that that's not something I'm doing purposefully or maliciously or because I'm selfish or I'm whatever, it's part of my manifestation. Now that they understand that about me, there's some more compassion and we can work with that. That's not to say that my kids don't call me out. Mama, you just interrupted me. Let me finish, right? Like we work with it. It's not just an excuse, but the understanding is so helpful. We hate when people make us wait, but we're often late. We can either take like 3 days to do the most basic of tasks, or we can do like a week's worth of work in like 4 hours if we're hyper focused. There's just so many contradictions that it's hard sometimes to understand it. But once you have the awareness and understanding of like, wait, what? Okay, why? Why does your brain do that? Oh, and that's how it works for you. The self-compassion and then compassion that your family members can have for you as well allows for you to call each other in and out. Like I said, not in a way that makes it just an excuse, but is like, okay, this is that thing that you do because this is happening. Let's work with that. And it's just, it becomes ways to like build connection with your family instead of always being points of tension, which is why people usually come to me because they're always in tension with or conflict with those around them.
Yeah, I will second what you said because I have never been someone with consistent energy to do things. And I'm so grateful my husband's like super accepting and patient about my working style, particularly with things I don't want to do, right? Like housework is what it really is. And it became really apparent that I may be neurospicy when we were moving cross country.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a crazy workload and was traveling a bunch. I'm like, this is all going to follow me. That's awesome. He's the one who's like, typical guy, goes to sleep, wakes up, has the same amount of energy and can just like consistently do things all the time.
Yep.
Whereas me, I'm like, I don't have the energy for that. But then when I do, it's like, let's go, right? Like hyper focus.
Yep.
And I'm still like that. Like I'll have my spurts of time where I'm like, okay, oh, something's bothering me. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, well, I'm riding the wave. Now let's go do something else that's related to this. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I was super productive. And now I'm like empty. I need to recharge. And the funny story I like to share about me like really wondering if I have it is when we were packing, I should say, when I was packing up our house to sell it, I would like pack some boxes in one room, get bored, go to a different room, pack some boxes there, get bored, go to a different room. Yep. So our house looked like a hot fucking mess. And my husband would like come out of his hole from working or, come back from traveling. And I'm like, I promise you I made progress. It just doesn't look like it because no one room is complete. Yep. But there's more boxes.
I did make progress. I swear. I really did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are interest driven. We are boredom, right? Like if we're bored, and I just posted about this the other day. People will say, especially with children, like, well, all children are interest driven, right? Like they're more engaged if they're interested in something. Totally agreed. ADHD example would be like, I struggled to pass in school. I got a lot of C's and D's. And then I started to find courses that I liked. And in college and graduate school, I passed with honors straight A's. Like there was no in between for me. There was truly, I would just get the credit enough to move on or perfect scores. And that was because of my interest base. Yeah. So, with the project, like moving, for example, if you were to step back and review that, you guys could probably decide like, okay, what parts are we each going to do? You might delegate differently next time based on what was harder or easier for both of you. I really want to be clear that like me having ADHD is not an excuse for me to say, I'm not good at that. I can't do it. And we're interest driven, sure. So I could say like, I'm not interested in dishes. I'm not going to do them. But like, that's not the way the world works, right? We all have daily grind tasks like dishes and laundry and that have to be done. But we are intentional about how we split those responsibilities in the home. I can give a really short example. Again, it's December. We're doing this reverse Advent thing. So every day, December 1st to 25th, everyone in my family is donating something. We're trying to be really intentional about it. It's not because it's broken or garbage. It's like something that brought you joy and you're no longer need, shoes that still have tread on them, a book that's still in great shape, a sweater that you don't reach for anymore, right? That someone else could really benefit from, with the intention of having 100 items by the end of the month to donate. And that's the type of project that I like, but it's an executive functioning nightmare because it's also like, I printed out the instructions, we rolled it out to the kids. I needed to have a place to put all the stuff. Some of it I needed to like pre-sort and be like, oh, wait, that's not going to go to the donation center because your cousin needs those because she's going to grow into them. Like all of that mental load. I actually don't mind doing all of that. I said to my husband, I'll do these steps to it. And then it will rot in the trunk of my car if you don't take over from there. So now it's like I'm doing up until a certain point, and then I give him the green light and say, this can go to the library, this can go to the school, this can go to the donation center up on Georgia Ave, and he makes that part happen. It's like a really good example of it's not all on me, it's not all on him, but we were really clear from the start, these are the expectations. And now it's like this nice thing that we are doing, and it's a new holiday tradition. And sometimes like the joy in something like that can be sucked out with the details and the mental load that comes along with it. And all of a sudden you're like, why did we do this stupid tradition anyway? Now I've just got piles of all this junk and nobody can even benefit from it. So there's an example of where I like played to my strengths, played to my husband's strengths. We put it all together and, you know, it's going quite well, which is lovely. So yeah, I don't get to just opt out because I have ADHD, but I do get to say to him, this is the part I'm going to struggle with most. Are you willing to take on that part? And he was.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful display of true partnership and ownership and accountability, right?
Right.
Now, I know that with couples who have one or both neurospicy people, that's going to impact the relationship a lot, right? Like it could feel like, gosh, I have another child because I'm needing to, you know, micromanage. It's hard for me to pass off ownership because it's like, now I got to like keep it in my brain and make sure it actually gets done. What do you have to offer to those people who are like, I love this person so much and I know they're not doing it on purpose and it's still having a negative impact on me?
Yeah. First, just I see y'all. I see y'all. I've lived it. I've seen it. And I work mostly with women with ADHD, but I do almost always have one or two couples as well in kind of my caseload where one person has ADHD. And what I have seen is it's harder for women either way. So if you are in a hetero marriage and you're a woman with ADHD, the expectations are already impossible put upon us, right? Disproportionate mental load, disproportionate invisible labor, disproportionate expectations around managing the home and parenting and kin keeping and all of that. And then, as I said in the beginning of our talk, we struggle with executive function. So like pile on, it's harder for us. If you're in a hetero relationship and a husband has ADHD, it's also harder for the woman because of those same expectations I just talked about. And now your husband gets this in some, you know, social circles like this pass. Oh, he's aloof. He's ADHD. He can't do that. Oh, he can't manage the calendar because he has ADHD. And it's bullshit. It's not fair. Guess what? If he can keep his job and make it to a meeting at work, then he can do that at home as well. So I work with couples often to kind of unpack that and get into the layers here. And again, play to each person's strengths, yes, but nobody gets to use it as an excuse. Nobody gets to opt out, and we get to have great compassion for one another and meet in the middle. But no one teaches you that when you first get started, right? No one's talking about that until it's messy. And you know, when I talk to people about, are we the right fit? One of the very first questions I ask is like, what's at stake here? If we don't work together, like what's the risk? And the last 3 calls that I did with couples, all 3 of them in their own words, different variation of how they said it, but all 3 of them said, our marriage is at stake. This will make or break our marriage. So it's not like a cute, nice to have, right? It's about equitable distribution of labor, all types of labor within the family. Once your kids are old enough, getting them on board too. And with or without ADHD, not allowing that all to fall to mom, whether she's working inside the home or not, I don't care, right? Like I own a business, I'm working, but even for folks that identify and say like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, that should be all mine. Not unless it was explicitly agreed upon with both partners and you're both happy with that arrangement, it should never be the default. It's 2025. Like we got to stop with that. We got to stop.
No, 100%. I mean, what good is your marriage if one person's thriving and the other one is like barely treading water,
Yeah.
right? They feel like they're drowning.
And then they get called a nag and a bitch.
Yeah.
No, it's not okay. And what I will say is I am very lucky that I have worked with incredible men, including my husband, incredible men that are really on board and want what we're talking about, right? Like I'm not talking about people that are like, no, I want my, wife to be barefoot and pregnant and do everything for me. We rarely come across that, probably for a variety of reasons. We could talk about how, my sample is skewed a little bit, but a lot of men that are saying like, I want what you're saying. I literally don't know how, because the school always calls my wife, not me. And I don't know what clothes fit them. And I don't know that my 8-year-old daughter has a preference on the underwear she wears because the tag scratches her back. And if I don't get her right. So they're actually really asking for, how do I do this? It's a skill gap, not a will gap.
Yep.
Now, if there's a will gap, that's possible to work on, but it's a very different issue. Yeah. I really do work mostly when I do work with couples. I'm working on couples that are on the same page, want the same things, but there are skill gaps on both sides for husband and wife. And I'm supporting them to fill in those skill gaps with the ADHD top of mind.
Absolutely. And also sometimes it really is your communication approach. Like maybe you think you're coming off kind and respectful, but you're not because you're resentful and upset.
Yep.
Rightfully so.
Yep.
But if you don't know healthy communication, then it can come off abrasive, right? And so there are different nuances. Another big one that I come across with my female clients is their readiness to relinquish some control.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big one.
They have no trust that it will get done well, right, to their standards.
Yes.
And that's not fair either. That's not fair then to set up your partner to fail because it's not going to be done your way. Yeah. Laundry is kind of my domain in our house and dishes is my husband's. So like the kids have to make sure that laundry gets in hampers and dishes get in the sink. They do that part, right? But then the rest of the flow of those two household chores fall on me or my husband. But like I don't get to micromanage dishes. He does them when he wants. He does them how he wants. He buys the soap he wants, the sponges he wants. Sometimes they sit out overnight. He gets to live to his standards on that because guess what? I don't do dishes and that's worth it to me. Yep. I don't load the dishwasher, unload the dish. Like he does it. And because of that, I have decided I have no opinions about it. Now, that's not to say you can't come to some common ground, right? You could make up some rules and say, whoever does dishes, we're going to agree. I don't know, the sink is clear by the end of the night or whatever. Yes. But I have decided I don't give a shit because I don't do dishes. He does it 100%. And then the flip of that is laundry, right? So I don't get feedback from him about laundry. He could if he wanted to. And we know now, to your point about communication, when we have those conversations and how he could give that feedback. But he usually doesn't have many notes because he just can trust that it's going to get done because I have completely owned that. I trust that dishes are going to get done. He has completely owned that. I don't need to micromanage it. And that's hard for a lot of people.
It is. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible to get there, but having that awareness that the torch hasn't been passed because this is a transition I see. Like, well, I just want, them to do more. Okay. Well, I want them to take on this, but then you're hovering, right? You're like micromanaging the process. That doesn't ever feel good. Like, sure, there may be a training process that needs to happen, maybe some shadowing, maybe some level setting with the standard of accomplishment so that done means the same thing to both of you. But after they show that they have acquired the skill, like hands off. Yeah. Right? Let them. Yep. And for my husband and I, we're the opposite. Actually, my husband is the one that does all the laundry. Okay. I do the cooking and the kitchen cleaning because I care more about the food and I don't mind doing the dishes. And so like Yeah. And now we're at that point where, we have a 9-year-old, and starting this week, actually, starting tomorrow, every Wednesday is going to be his laundry day. So he will be in charge of washing his own clothes. And that's our way of like adding a little bit of more independence to his life,
Yep.
because it's like low stakes for us. If you don't have clean clothes, that's on you. That doesn't affect me.
So that's a good one too. So I am also a fair play facilitator for folks that are familiar with Eve Rodsky's Fair Play. So what you're describing there is part of what they call like the MSC, the minimum standard of care. So like we would agree as a couple, what's the minimum standard of care for the process of laundry, for example, right? And then whoever holds that responsibility is going to complete it to the same minimum standard of care. But the letting go that you're talking about, like, yeah, so what does it mean? Would you let your 9-year-old go and, grass stained knees because they didn't get the laundry done in time? And sometimes that sucks. I worked with a client last summer where she said he's not going to get summer camp done in time. Here in DC, people book summer camp in like January. It's wild. Mm-hmm. She's like, he's not going to do it. He's not going to. And I said, okay, let's go there. So what then happens? What then happens? What then happens? And what ended up happening was he didn't for 1 week. He missed 1 week. And when that week came, he had to figure it out. He had to take some PTO. He had to get a sitter. He called his mom and asked for some help. And it was so hard for her to watch, like, because she saw it happening, right?
Yeah.
She really wanted to intervene. And it wasn't, I worked with them for a while. It wasn't in a gotcha kind of way. And it worked out. And he saw the full cycle and was able to come back and say, for a long time, I've been calling this nagging, and I see that you were just trying to keep, the train on its track.
Protect. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was trying to protect him from failing, which I think a lot of women have trouble witnessing because we deeply care about our people. We have been raised to care about other people and protecting their feelings, even to our detriment at times. And a lot of change requires us to let them go through their own process with our kids, with our spouse, right? Like we can only do so much, like they still got to drive the train. We cannot push it. We cannot do anything. And so, like that's definitely a low level type of task that we're willing to let him fail. And sometimes people learn the hard way. And this is something we're willing to let him learn the hard way if it comes to that.
For sure. For sure. And listen, Michelle, I can't ignore that the standards are not fair. So if I dress my kids and send them to school in dirty clothes, I'm judged differently than if my husband does that. For him, it's cute, right? Or like their hair is unbrushed. Oh, dad was on duty this morning. That exists and we can't ignore that. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, just let it all go. See what happens. I get that we are held to a different standard and sometimes straight up judged. The stereotype of you're going to host and the husband goes outside and does all the yard work and you're meant to clean up inside. And if you don't, and there's crumbs under the table, who's going to get judged? Mom, probably, right? And so that exists and we're swimming in that soup and we can't change all that overnight. And we get to make the change in our homes, which impacts at least this home. And then the children that are in our homes, and then the conversations that they're having and the people that we're talking to in this podcast audience here, right? Like we get to start on a smaller level, while also I have chosen to also simultaneously try to work on a bigger scale about gender equity in homes and marriages as well. So
absolutely,
kind of doing both simultaneously. I don't want to ignore that things are stacked against women in a lot of places.
100%. And I think that's where more parents need to start the kids early because they don't get to live there and reap all the benefits and not contribute. Like we're also setting them up for failure as a future adult by not involving them early. Like this is what builds empathy. This is what builds teamwork. This is what builds their skills on how to live independently. So it's like, it's not about robbing them of their free time. Like they have plenty of free time. And I'm not saying turn them into Cinderella and like make their free time all chores. It's like, no, but like you get to have free time too. If you have no free time and the kids are just sitting around, I'm bored. My kids know never to tell me they're bored because if they're bored, I will give them a job to do.
Yeah. And they I was an educator for a long time. So child development is always running in the back of my head. And there's so many appropriate pieces around the confidence that gets built in them for having that independence. the confidence that they build and strong self-concept they build by being contributors to their home, the confidence they can then access when they are at sleepaway camp and contribute to their cabin, or then are a roommate in college, or, sleepaway camp in high school. And then when they have a boyfriend or girlfriend and they're in partnership, like all of those pieces, the benefits well outweigh the mild inconvenience of being like, hey, for the 15th time, you're going to pick up your clothes and it's your laundry day. Let's go. I'm going to help you now and build this because of the benefits long term. This isn't about helping mom. That's not what this is. We got to change that story. You're not helping mom. You are contributing to the home just like we all do. We can all notice things. We can all contribute in different ways, and that can change over time. It's not like mom's the CEO and you're pitching in and doing me a favor. Nope.
No, absolutely not. You also live here. So
Exactly. And so I know we've talked a lot about broad strokes, but with ADHD, if I go back to the working memory idea, like I said, I like to think of it as like a Post-it, because Post-it information is like temporary, right? It's sticky note. It's going to fall off and end up in the trash at some point. Fine. If it were really important, I would like save it on my hard drive, right? So it's all those things that like one at a time aren't going to be game changers, but they all add up and they're important. But the sticky notes on our brain, if you have ADHD, like aren't very sticky, and they're written in invisible ink and they're stuck on the bottom of our shoe. So it makes it a lot harder to hold that information and use it functionally. And then we spend a lot more cognitive energy than the average person worrying about, did I lose a sticky note? Do I have them in the right order? Which one do I do first? Did I write that one with invisible ink? So even just the organization of these mental sticky notes, I mean, it requires a lot more cognitive energy. It gets wrapped up into our idea of like our self-concept and our, oh, am I a failure? Am I crushing it on Monday and failing on Tuesday and all of that? It's emotional, it's draining, and it's exhausting. So again, you have that as a baseline for most moms in America, and then you tack on the executive dysfunction and working memory troubles and impulsivity and distractibility and a society that is not set up for folks with ADHD, and it makes all of those things that much harder.
Yeah. So what are some popular tools and levels of support that you recommend for those who do feel like they are, killing it in one way and failing in another, and they're just like having a hard time grasping how this is both them?
Yeah. So I think the things that I work on most with clients, I mean, one, I do recommend getting help, whether that's talking to a medical professional, whether it's hiring a coach like me, whether it's just reading more about ADHD to better understand it. I do recommend asking for help. Number two, we need to, as women, talk to ourselves like we would talk to our best friend. We are so critical of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And again, that is really taxing and wears us down and takes and depletes. And we need that energy to utilize elsewhere. I think what I do most in coaching, as I mentioned, this idea of like bringing awareness and understanding and then acceptance and then action. Once we get to the action point, I really am customizing it to clients wherever they're having the biggest challenge. But I think the common thread is like they go from feeling they're just like white knuckling it through. Like, I just got to get through the day. I just got to make it to Friday. I just got to make it through Christmas. I just got to make it. They leave that behind and then can have some more presence and like, okay, this is what I'm focusing on this week. This is what I'm letting go. This is where I really am thriving right now. And this is not the season for me to, I don't know, raise chickens in my backyard, right? Like just some prioritization that feels really aligned to what they want. And then we make the action plans aligned to that. Like, what's the messiest part of your life right now? Let's clean it up. Now that you know this is how your brain works, is it bedtime with the kids? Great, we're going to reset it. Let's make it work for you. Is it meals and food? Let's dig in there. Is it deadlines at work? And so then I dive in with clients to get really, really specific on what it is for them and help them see that they can rebuild it in a way that works for them, and not everything has to feel hard. Because if you're struggling with ADHD, everything feels hard. It feels hard to get in the shower. It feels hard to remember to take your vitamins. It feels hard to remember to hydrate. It feels hard. I mean, everything can feel hard. And my promise to clients is to bring more ease into their lives.
Yeah. And I mean, that is the nuts and bolts of hiring a coach, and why it's so impactful is because they are the ones observing the patterns that you have that maybe you don't see.
Yep.
Or maybe you do see and you don't know what to do about it. It seems
Sure.
like there's too much to
Either.
focus on. I feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Well, Martha here could be like, okay,
Yep.
I see all that.
Yep.
And let's prioritize. Let's have your actions align to what would have the biggest impact on you, or what would matter the most to you and make the biggest difference in your life right now. So sometimes it is easier to have someone just tell you what to do, right? Instead of just feeling like another thing I got to figure out on my own, because, you know, we came with a manual when we came to this life.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you feel like you're struggling right now and you're just like, oh, I wish life could be easier, I wish someone could just tell me what to do. There's coaches out there like Martha who literally would love to help you with that clarity and focus, and give you the tools to help you feel like you're more empowered, right? You could see yourself for the gifts that you offer to this world and work with the things that are just nuanced to you. Just like, oh, it's like an ism that you have, right? Thank you so much for being on the show, Martha. For those who are tuning in and they're like, oh gosh, she just described me and I feel like the next step is to get support, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, great. Martha Hoffman Coaching. So Instagram or my website, Martha Hoffman Coaching. If you're listening to this and you're like, yes, I think so, just book a free call. I'll talk with folks for an hour, basically get a download of what's happening in your life, and then let you know if what I offer is the right fit. If it is, great. If it's not, you know, I still have over 20 years experience and might be able to give you some nuggets and say, hey, check this out, or read this, or have you considered blank? And this is what I was meant to do. I enjoy what I do. I love connecting with other folks. And yeah, Martha Hoffman Coaching, follow, book a call, say hi, all of those fun things. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation today.
Same. All right, listeners, if you have loved this conversation, please go connect with Martha. Let her know you found her from the show. And if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please do them a solid. Share it. Better yet, share it in your Instagram stories. Tag us so we can give you a shout out. And if you love this show, thank you so much for being here and listening. I would love it if you could support this show by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. And that's what helps this show grow. That's what helps women like you find the show and get the help that they need. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.